On our 20th wedding anniversary, I woke up before the alarm, smiling to myself like a teenager. I lay there for a moment, staring at the faint morning light on the ceiling, thinking about everything we had been through, moving from that awful tiny apartment into our first real house, raising our daughter, surviving layoffs, sickness, arguments, reconciliations. 20 years. I thought that meant something. I thought it meant security, stability, that we were past the age of stupid surprises. I was wrong. I rolled over and looked at Daniel. He was still asleep, his face relaxed in a way I hadn't seen for months. Lately, he always seemed tense, distracted, glued to his phone, or too tired to talk. But I brushed it off, the way wives always do when they're trying to protect the fantasy. He works so hard. He's under pressure. He'll relax once things calm down. 20 years of marriage had taught me how to make excuses for him faster than he could make mistakes. I slipped out of bed quietly and went to the kitchen. Our mugs were where they always were, his chipped blue one that said, "World's Best Dad." In fading letters, my floral one I had bought on sale 10 years ago. I made coffee, humming softly, and pulled out the ingredients for his favorite breakfast, French toast with cinnamon and powdered sugar. I wanted the day to start perfectly. I wanted him to feel loved. I wanted him to feel that despite everything, I was still in his corner. As the smell of butter and sugar filled the kitchen, I felt my phone buzz on the counter. It was my daughter, Emma. "Happy anniversary. Mom, don't forget to relax today. You deserve it." My throat tightened a little. If there was one thing I was proud of in my life, it was her. I typed back quickly. "Thank you, sweetheart. Love you." She replied with a string of heart emojis. And for a second, everything felt warm and right. Back in the bedroom, I heard movement. Daniel's footsteps. The bathroom door opening and closing. I arranged the French toast on a plate, added some strawberries shaped like little hearts, and poured the coffee just the way he liked it. 2 sugars, 1 cream. I was placing the tray on the table when he walked into the kitchen. He looked different. Not in his face, exactly, but in his eyes. There was a brightness there I couldn't place. Not joy, something sharper, nervousness, anticipation. "Good morning," I said, smiling, trying not to stare. "Happy anniversary." He hesitated for a fraction of a second, then leaned in to kiss my cheek. "Happy anniversary," he replied. "Wow, this looks amazing." "Well, 20 years deserves French toast." I laughed. He sat down, but he didn't pick up his fork. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, flat box. Not jewelry sized, a bit too big for that. My heart jumped anyway. "Oh," I said, surprised. "You didn't have to get me anything. We agreed." "I know," he cut in quickly, "but this is special. I wanted to give it to you first thing this morning." Something in his tone made my smile wobble. I told myself it was nerves. Men never really know how to do sentimental things, right? I wiped my hands on a dish towel and sat opposite him. "Okay," I said lightly, "what's this big mystery surprise?" He pushed the box toward me. His hands were slightly shaking. "Just open it," he said softly. I lifted the lid. For a moment, my brain didn't understand what I was looking at. It wasn't a necklace or bracelet. It wasn't perfume. It was a stack of paper. Stapled, neatly aligned. I picked it up slowly, and then I saw the first words printed in cold black ink, PPTIONFAR-DIVORCE. The room tilted. The word DIVORCE was in all caps, as if it needed to shout in my face, in case I dared to misunderstand. Below it, my full name, my address, our marriage date, our daughter's name. The legal language blurred as tears pricked at my eyes. I looked up at him, my voice coming out in a hoarse whisper. Eyes, is this a joke? He couldn't meet my gaze. He stared down at the table, at the French toast he hadn't touched. No, he said quietly. It's not a joke. My heart started pounding so hard that I could feel it in my throat. You're giving me divorce papers on our anniversary. He exhaled, long and heavy, like he was the one suffering. I didn't want it to be like this. But there's no good time. I thought maybe if I did it now, we could start over. Separately, clean break, I repeated, my voice rising slightly. After 20 years, he flinched. Anger began to boil under the shock. So this is the surprise? I asked, my hands trembling as I held the papers. You ruin our anniversary, our life, with paperwork. He finally looked at me, and there was guilt there, but also something else. Determination. I've been unhappy for a long time, Claire, he said. We'll both know things haven't been good. No. Don't you dare drag me into this. Don't you dare make me complicit in your decision. We could have gone to therapy, I said, my voice cracking. We could have talked. You didn't even try. I did talk. He snapped, a flash of irritation passing through him. You just didn't listen. You were always busy with Emma, with the house, with worrying about money. Oh, I'm so sorry I worried about money. I shot back. You know, the bills that kept a roof over our heads while you changed jobs every other year because you were finding yourself. His jaw tightened. I flipped through the pages with shaking hands. The more I read, the sicker I felt. He had already met with a lawyer, already calculated the division of assets, already decided what would happen to the house. What is this? I demanded, pointing to one line. You get the house. It makes more sense. He said bluntly. Your income is smaller. You won't be able to afford upkeep. I stared at him speechless for a second. So your solution is to keep the house and throw me into some tiny rental. You'll get your share of the equity. He replied, as if that made it generous. Plus your retirement. You'll be fine. Fine. The word burned. And what about Emma? I asked. Does she know about this? He hesitated, and that hesitation told me everything. Yes, he said finally. I talked to her last night. My stomach dropped. You told our daughter you wanted a divorce before you told me. I wanted to prepare her, he insisted. I didn't want her to be blindsided. Blindsided, like I apparently deserved to be. I stood up abruptly, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. How long have you been planning this? His silence answered for him. How long? My voice shook. He sighed. Almost a year. A year of him sleeping beside me with these papers growing like a tumor in the shadows. A year of him letting me cook. Clean, plan, hope. A year of me asking, are you okay? And him saying, I'm fine, while he secretly hired a lawyer. I felt something deep inside me snap, not loudly, but like a quiet branch breaking under too much weight. And there's something else, he added, his voice dropping. Of course there is. There is always something else. I stared at him, barely breathing. I've met someone, he said. The world went silent. He continued talking, but his words were distant, muffled, like they were coming from underwater. It just happened, he was saying. I didn't plan it. She understands me. She listens. I feel alive again. I wasn't going to tell you yet, but it's serious. I stared at his face, searching for the man I married. The man who used to leave little notes in my lunchbox, who kissed me in the kitchen just because he liked the way I laughed, who held our daughter with tears in his eyes the day she was born. He wasn't there. There was just this stranger, this man who could hand me divorce papers on our anniversary, talk about feeling alive while killing everything we had built together. I gave you my 20s. I whispered, my 30s, my 40s. I raised our daughter. I supported you through every job change, every crisis. And your surprise for me is that you found someone who makes you feel alive. He winced, but didn't take it back. I can't stay in a marriage where I feel dead, he said quietly. I didn't want to keep lying to you. I looked down at the papers in my hand. Cold, white, heavy. They might as well have been a death certificate for the life I thought I had. You've been lying to me for a year, I said. You just chose today to make it official. He stood up now too, as if the conversation had concluded. You can have time to read everything, he said. Sign when you're ready, the lawyer said. I cut him off with a raised hand. Get out. He blinked. Claire, get out, I repeated, my voice shaking but firm. I can't even look at you right now. He opened his mouth to argue, then thought better of it. He grabbed his keys from the hook near the door and paused, as if hoping I would soften, would call him back, would say, we can work this out. I didn't. The door closed behind him with a dull finality. I stood there, the house suddenly too quiet, the smell of French toast turning my stomach. I looked at the table, 2 coffees, only one touched a plate of food, going cold, a small box that had held the ugliest surprise of my life. I picked up his mug, the one that said, World's Best Dad. And for a moment, I almost laughed at the irony. Then I hurled it into the trash. The sound of ceramic shattering at the bottom of the bin was the first honest sound of the day. For a long moment after Daniel left, I didn't move. I stood there in the middle of the kitchen, surrounded by the ghost of a morning that was supposed to be warm and loving. The French toast had gone cold, the coffee had turned bitter, and the small gift box sat open like a wound that would not close. It was absurd how quickly one moment, one decision, one stack of papers could shatter 20 years of shared life. Eventually, my legs gave out, and I sank into a chair. The divorce petition lay on the table, mocking me with its neat legal language and soulless precision. My fingers hovered above the papers, but every time I tried to touch them, a wave of nausea rose in my throat. I pushed them away and covered my face with my hands. How could he? How could someone who once swore to protect my heart break it with such calculation? How could he hand me divorce papers on our anniversary of all days? And how could he tell our daughter before telling me? The thought of Emma hit me like a punch to the stomach. She must have known. She must have looked me in the eye yesterday, maybe even earlier this morning, carrying the weight of her father's secret. My heart twisted at the idea of her being put in that position, forced to keep the truth from me while pretending everything was normal. I picked up my phone with trembling hands and called her. She answered immediately. Mom, are you okay? Her voice broke the fragile dam inside me. He told you? I whispered. Silence? Then a shaky breath. Yes. And you didn't tell me? Mom? She said, voice soft with guilt. Dad made me promise. He said he needed to do it at the right moment. The right moment. As if there was a right moment to rip your life apart. Emma, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. How long have you known? She hesitated. That was enough of an answer. A few months. She finally admitted. I didn't want to hurt you. I closed my eyes. You should have told me. I know, she whispered, but I didn't know how. I'm so sorry, Mom. I didn't want to be in the middle. I sighed. She was young. She shouldn't have been dragged into this at all. This was Daniel's doing. It's okay, I told her softly. We'll figure this out. Mom, do you want me to come over? For a moment, I considered saying yes. I wanted her arms around me, wanted her to sit beside me like she used to when she was a little girl. But then I remembered something I had learned painfully over the last several years. When you break, you must choose carefully who you let witness the pieces. No, I said gently. I need some time. I'll call you later. After hanging up, I felt a hollow ache in my chest, but also a flicker of clarity. If Emma had known for months, that meant Daniel hadn't been confused or overwhelmed or lost. He had been planning, strategizing, setting up the perfect exit. I stood up, walked calmly to the sink, and threw away the French toast. Then I grabbed a sponge and washed the plate in slow, methodical circles. It was ridiculous, but scrubbing something clean, anything, felt like the only thing I had control over in that moment. As I wiped down the counter, something inside me hardened. If he wanted a clean break, then I would give him one, but not the way he expected. I changed out of my robe and into jeans and a sweater. My hands were still shaking, but my mind had gone strangely calm, like my thoughts were being rearranged into something new, something stronger. I grabbed my purse and keys and headed out the door. I drove without really thinking, just letting instinct guide me. Minutes later, I found myself parked in front of the place I swore I'd never return to unless absolutely necessary, my lawyer's office. The same one we had used years ago when updating our wills. The same one who had guided us through financial trouble when Daniel had lost his job the second time. Mr. Peterson recognized me immediately. Claire, he said, surprised. Is everything all right? No, I said honestly. It isn't. He led me into his office, and as soon as the door closed, I broke. The tears came, not loud, not dramatic, but soft and painful, the kind that come from somewhere deep inside, from wounds too fresh to ignore. He waited patiently until I could speak. My husband gave me divorce papers this morning, I said quietly, on our anniversary. His eyebrows shot up. I'm sorry. Truly. There's more, I said, swallowing hard. He's been planning it for a year. He's met someone else. He's already talked to our daughter. And he's trying to keep the house. Mr. Peterson's expression hardened. Sit down, he said. Let's go through everything. For the next hour, he asked questions, took notes, examined the divorce petition like it was a roadmap to betrayal. When he finished, he looked at me with a seriousness that made my stomach twist. Claire, he said, your husband has been preparing this very carefully, but he made a mistake. What mistake? I asked, almost afraid to hear it. He underestimated you? I blinked. What do you mean? Hay assumed you'd panic, that you'd accept whatever terms he offered, that the shock would break you, that you'd sign quickly just to get it over with. But you're here. You're thinking clearly. And that means we have leverage. I sat a little straighter. We're not letting him take the house, Mr. Peterson said firmly. Not after everything you've contributed. And the fact that he has a new partner, that changes things legally. Legally. I repeated. He nodded. If he began the relationship before separation, it counts as marital misconduct in many cases. We'll investigate. A spark ignited inside me. Not anger, not revenge. Strength. Real, grounded strength. What do I need to do? I asked. First, he said, don't sign anything. Second, don't confront him. Third, let me handle everything from here. I nodded slowly. When I left the office, the air felt different, cold but sharp, like winter sunlight. I walked to my car with deliberate, steady steps. Daniel thought he could end our marriage in one morning. He thought he could hand me papers, walk out, and move on to his new life without consequence. He thought I was weak. He was wrong. Very wrong. As I sat in the car, staring at the road ahead, a new thought rose inside me, one that made my pulse quicken. If he wanted a war, he had just chosen the wrong woman to fight. Driving home felt like drifting through fog, everything familiar yet blurred around the edges, as if the world had shifted angles without warning. I parked the car in the driveway and sat there for a moment, gripping the steering wheel. The house looked the same, white fence, trimmed bushes, the wreath I'd hung on the door just last week. But it didn't feel like my home anymore. Not after the morning I had. Inside, the silence was thick and heavy. I walked to the kitchen and found the divorce papers right where I had left them on the table. For a second, I just stood there, staring at them with a kind of disbelief that comes in waves. I picked them up, held them in my hands, and then I did something I didn't expect. I laughed. It wasn't a joyful laugh. It was sharp, brittle, almost painful, because there was something ridiculous, almost comedic, about how blindsided I had been. A 20-year marriage ending with a surprise on our anniversary. Cold papers handed over like a coupon. My husband thinking I'd simply fold. After the laugh faded, the anger returned, and this time it wasn't messy or overwhelming. It was clean, sharp, focused. I placed the papers back down and went into the living room. I tucked my knees under me on the sofa and stared out the window. 20 years, I whispered. And this is how it ends. But it didn't end there, not for me. Not yet. My phone buzzed again. I thought it might be Daniel, but it was my sister, Amy. Amy heard about the anniversary. Want me to come over. My heart sank. So he had told her too. Who else knew before me? How long had he been narrating his misery to other people while acting normal at home? I typed back, Mihei, you talked to Daniel. She responded almost instantly. Amy, he called this morning. Wanted to give me a heads up. My hands tightened around the phone. He told my daughter. He told my sister. He told his lawyer. He told the new woman. Everyone but me. I typed slowly, me, I'm okay. Just need space. Amy, he hurt you. I can tell. I stared at those words for a long moment. Hurt didn't even begin to cover it. As I put my phone down, a sudden, familiar thought crept into my mind, memories of all the times I had stayed silent to keep peace, the times I had absorbed his moods, the sacrifices I made, the dreams I put aside, all the ways I had prioritized his comfort over mine. Well, those days were over. Around noon, I made myself tea and opened my laptop. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, maybe guidance, maybe distraction, but instinctively I typed in the phrase, how to protect yourself during divorce. For the next hour, I fell into a rabbit hole of articles about finances, property rights, emotional manipulation, and strategies for unfair divorces. With each paragraph, my anger gained structure, form, purpose. Then I stumbled across a forum thread titled, My Husband Left Me for Someone Else. What saved me? As I read the stories, something strange happened. I didn't feel alone anymore. I began scrolling through comment after comment, women sharing their heartbreak, their anger, their victories. Women who had lost everything only to rebuild something stronger. Women who had been blindsided, betrayed, discarded, and had survived. One comment stopped me cold D. The moment he hides something from you, he's already left the marriage. I leaned back in my chair, those words echoing in my mind. Daniel hadn't fallen out of love. He hadn't lost connection. He hadn't been unhappy. He had left our marriage long before he handed me the papers. I just hadn't realized it. The next few hours passed in a strange rhythm. I cleaned the house, but not like I usually did. It wasn't the gentle cleaning of a wife maintaining a home. It was the sharp, precise cleaning of someone removing old energy. I scrubbed countertops, reorganized cabinets, tore old notes off the fridge, packed up pictures that made my heart hurt too much. When I reached our bedroom, I paused. His scent was everywhere. The pillow he slept on, the dresser he used, the drawer where he kept his wedding ring at night. The ring he hadn't worn in months, something I now understood with devastating clarity. I stood in the doorway, breathing deeply. Then I opened all the windows, let the cold air sweep in, let it take the last traces of him with it. When evening approached, I received another text, this time from Daniel. Daniel, can we talk later? Just to keep things civil. Civil? The word curled my stomach. I ignored the message. A minute later, another came through. Daniel, please don't make this harder than it has to be. I let out a bitter laugh. He was worried about it being hard. Still ignoring him, I walked to the bedroom closet and pulled out a box I hadn't touched in years. Inside were scrapbooks, photo albums from our early marriage, vacations, birthdays, Emma's baby pictures, cards he wrote me, filled with promises he hadn't kept. I flipped through them with a kind of numb curiosity, as if looking at someone else's life. And in a way, this wasn't my life anymore. This wasn't my husband. This wasn't my future. That realization brought an unexpected wave of relief, sorrow, yes, loss, absolutely, but also relief because I wasn't going to spend another year waiting for a man who had already checked out. Night fell, and I made myself dinner, just enough for one. I put on soft music, lit a candle, sat at the table with a bowl of soup, and breathed through the silence. After dinner, I received a call from an unknown number. Normally, I would ignore it, but something nudged me to answer. Hello, I said cautiously. A warm voice replied. Is this Claire? Yes, this is Margaret. I'm the paralegal from Mr. Peterson's office. My heart skipped. Is everything all right? I just wanted to let you know. She said gently that Daniel's lawyer reached out. They're pushing hard for a fast settlement. But don't worry, we're handling it. Fast settlement. He really wanted this over quickly. Thank you for calling, I said quietly. Anytime. And Claire, yes, you're doing the right thing. When I hung up, I stood in the middle of my quiet living room, a strange new feeling stirring inside me. Not fear, not sadness, determination. The old me, the one who kept peace, kept quiet, kept forgiving, was fading. And in her place, someone new was emerging. Someone who would no longer beg for scraps of love. Someone who would no longer shrink to make room for someone else's comfort. Someone who would fight for herself. I walked to the mirror and looked into my own eyes, seeing myself clearly for the first time in years. This isn't the end, I whispered. It's the beginning. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise, not because I couldn't sleep, but because for the first time in years, I didn't want to stay in bed, lying beside an empty pillow where Daniel once slept should have hurt, but strangely, it didn't. Or maybe the hurt was still there, but something stronger was growing around it, like scar tissue forming to protect a fresh wound. I made myself coffee and stood by the kitchen window, watching the sky shift from indigo to gold. It was quiet, peaceful quiet, not the suffocating kind that filled the house yesterday. A gentle, calm silence. My silence. As I sipped, my eyes drifted toward the table, toward the papers he left behind. The divorce petition was still there, but now it felt smaller, less threatening, like an object that belonged to someone else's story, not mine. I pushed the papers aside and grabbed a notebook. I wasn't sure what I wanted to write, but once the pen touched the paper, the words flowed freely. What do I want? It was a question I hadn't asked myself in years. I wrote it again, then again, letting the repetition sink in. What did I want? For 20 years, everything I wanted had been tied to Daniel, his career, his comfort, his dreams, his failures, his moods. Now, for the first time, I had no obligation to shape myself around him. I wasn't his wife anymore. I wasn't the person who had to anticipate his needs. I wasn't carrying his emotional weight. I took a deep breath and wrote, I want my life back. The sentence hit me harder than I expected. Yes, that was it. I wanted my life back, the one I had set aside, piece by piece, until all that was left was a version of myself Daniel approved of. I put the notebook away and went to shower, letting the hot water wash away the heaviness in my chest. When I stepped out, I felt different, lighter, more awake. As I dried my hair, my phone buzzed with a message from Emma. Emma, are you okay today? I hesitated before responding. Me? I'm working on it. A pause. Then Emma's, I'm here for you, Mom. I love you. Tears pricked my eyes, but I blinked them away. Me, I love you too. I didn't mention the papers. I didn't mention Daniel. Today wasn't about them. Today was about me. After getting dressed, I decided to do something practical, something grounding. I drove to the bank to review my accounts with a financial advisor. I walked in expecting a cold, technical process, but the advisor, a woman named Nancy, surprised me with her warmth. I'm sorry you're going through this, she said after I explained. But you're taking the right steps. For the next hour, we went through every account, joint and personal. It was uncomfortable. Seeing my years of sacrifices translated into numbers and balances felt strangely intimate, like exposing my diary to a stranger. But Nancy was patient, knowledgeable, and supportive. She helped me freeze any account Daniel could access and guided me through setting up new protections. Protecting myself felt powerful. Afterward, I drove to the grocery store, not because I needed anything, but because I wanted to reclaim the normal things too. The simple things. The everyday things Daniel's selfishness had overshadowed. As I walked down the aisles, I found myself picking, I liked, not things he liked, not things he preferred, not things he judged, my cereal, my tea, my snacks. I was halfway down the checkout line when I suddenly noticed someone staring at me, a woman, blonde, late 30s, holding a basket of vegetables. She kept glancing at me like she recognized me or wanted to say something. I frowned slightly. Did I know her? She stepped closer. Claire, she said hesitantly. Yes, I managed. She sighed with relief. Oh, good. I wasn't sure if it was you. I'm Rachel. I work with Daniel. My stomach tightened. Right, I said slowly. I've heard your name. She bit her lip, clearly uncomfortable. I'm sorry to bother you, but I just wanted to say I'm really sorry for what you're going through. My throat clenched. You know? She winced. Most people at the office do. Daniel hasn't exactly been discreet. A rush of heat rose to my face, embarrassment, humiliation, anger all mixing together. I didn't know he was telling everyone, I said. She nodded sympathetically. Honestly, a lot of people think he's handling this poorly. We've seen him arguing on the phone with his lawyer and with someone else. My heart skipped. Someone else, I repeated. She paused, then spoke carefully. I shouldn't say this, but he's been spending a lot of time with a woman at work. Her name is... I held up a hand. Please don't tell me her name. Not now. She nodded quickly. Of course. I understand. I wanted you to know people see what's happening. And a lot of us are on your side. I didn't know what to say. Support from a stranger felt both comforting and painful. Thank you, I said softly. Take care of yourself, she replied before heading toward the checkout. I stood there for a long moment, letting her words settle. He wasn't just cheating emotionally, he was flaunting it. Others knew, others saw, and that hurt more than I expected. When I got home, I put away the groceries and sat in the living room again, letting the quiet fill the space. My mind replayed everything Rachel's words, the look on Daniel's face when he gave me the papers, the sound of Emma's voice on the phone. I took a deep breath. This was not the end of me. This was not the end of my dignity. This was not the end of my story. It was the end of his version of me. As I sat there, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from Daniel. Danielle, we should discuss living arrangements. It's important we keep things respectful. Respectful. From the man who blindsided me on our anniversary. I put the phone down without replying. Today was mine, tonight too. And tomorrow would be different, not because he wanted it to be, but because I did. That night, I found myself unable to sit still. I moved from room to room, as if trying to find a place where my thoughts would quiet down. But every corner of the house held memories of Daniel, some tender, some bitter, all of them now tainted. I eventually settled on the sofa with a blanket wrapped around my shoulders, staring at the muted TV screen without really watching anything. My phone lit up again. Daniel, I know you're upset, but we really need to talk. Daniel, I don't want this to turn ugly. Daniels, I've tried to call you. Please respond. Every message tightened something inside me, not because I wanted to answer, but because I finally understood the truth behind his sudden urgency. He wasn't reaching out because he cared about my feelings. He was reaching out because he was losing control. Mr. Peterson must have contacted his lawyer. That explained everything. The pressure wasn't on me anymore. It was on him. I placed the phone face down and curled deeper into the blanket. I wasn't going to let him drag me back into conversations that twisted my emotions and rewired my guilt. That version of me, the one who absorbed his moods, softened his anger, adjusted herself to keep the peace, was gone. Around 10, there was a knock at my door. My stomach tightened, but when I checked the peephole, it wasn't Daniel. It was Emma. I hesitated, then opened the door. Her eyes were red, like she'd been crying for hours. Mom, she whispered. I stepped aside, and she walked in wordlessly, setting her purse on the table. She stood there for a moment, then launched herself into my arms. I held her tightly, breathing in the familiar scent of the girl I raised, the girl who was now caught in the crossfire. I'm so sorry, she cried into my shoulder. I'm so sorry. I stroked her hair. Sweetheart, none of this is your fault. She pulled back and wiped her eyes. I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't know what to do. I felt like I was betraying you. You weren't, I said softly. Your father put you in an impossible position. She nodded, biting her lip. Mom, he's not the same. He's been different for months. Cold. Secretive. He barely talks to me either. Her voice cracked. I don't understand why he's doing this. I sighed, guiding her to sit on the couch. Sometimes people choose the wrong path because it's easier than facing themselves. She shook her head. I just hate that he hurt you this way. I know, I said gently. But I'm here, she whispered, placing her hand on mine. Whatever you need, I'll help. Her words brought tears to my eyes, not from pain, but from warmth I thought I'd lost. Thank you. We talked for nearly an hour. She asked questions. I answered what I could, and for the first time since the morning, I didn't feel like I was drowning. Before she left, she hugged me again, tightly, fiercely. I love you, Mom, she said. I love you too. When she closed the door behind her, the house felt different, less empty, more mine. But the peace didn't last long. The next morning, as I was making breakfast, there was another knock. This time, when I checked the peephole, I felt the blood drain from my face. Daniel, he wasn't alone. A woman stood behind him, the office woman, the one Rachel hinted at. Younger, stylish, wearing confidence like perfume. My breath caught in my throat. He brought her to my home. I didn't open the door. Claire! Daniel called through the wood. We need to talk. I remained silent. He knocked again, harder. Claire, don't be childish. This is important. Childish. The word lit a fire in my chest. I unlocked the door, but only opened it a few inches, the chain still on. What do you want? I asked coldly. He exhaled, visibly irritated by the barrier between us. Why aren't you answering your phone? Because I don't want to talk to you. He clenched his jaw. This is ridiculous. We need to discuss the house, the finances, and how we're going to move forward. Behind him, the other woman looked around with interest, as if she were studying her future property. I narrowed my eyes. Why is she here? My support. He replied simply. I laughed softly. Your support. You brought your affair partner to my doorstep and expect me to have a civilized conversation. Her cheeks flushed slightly, but Daniel didn't waver. She's not my affair partner, he snapped. We didn't start seeing each other until after I decided the marriage was over. After you decided? I repeated. Interesting timeline, considering the marriage wasn't over until you handed me those papers yesterday. He groaned. Claire, stop twisting things. You know the relationship was dead. I stared at him with disbelief. If it was dead, Daniel, it's because you killed it quietly over a year while I tried to keep it alive. His face reddened. That's not fair. Neither is cheating, I said flatly. The woman behind him shifted uncomfortably. Maybe we should come back later? No, Daniel said, raising a hand. We're here now, and you can leave now? I replied. I tried to close the door, but he blocked it with his hand. Anger surged through me. Move your hand, I warned. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. If you keep acting like this, the divorce will get ugly. My eyes narrowed. It already is. We can do this the easy way. He insisted. Just sign the papers, agree to the terms, and we can end this peacefully. Peacefully. What a joke. Your lawyer already talked to Mr. Peterson, I said. He knows what you're trying to pull. Daniel froze. The woman's eyes widened. You hired a lawyer? He asked, voice tightening. Of course I did, I said. You think you can blindside me and I'll just fold? He opened his mouth, closed it again, then looked furious. Claire, you're being unreasonable. No, I said calmly. I'm finally being reasonable. For myself. I closed the door firmly and locked it. He banged once, twice, then stopped. I watched through the peephole as he turned away, furious, dragging his girlfriend with him. When they reached the end of the walkway, the woman whispered something urgently to him. He snapped something back. They argued all the way to the car before driving off. I stepped away from the door, heart pounding, but strangely, I felt powerful. For the first time in years, Daniel didn't get what he wanted. And this was only the beginning. After they drove away, I stood in the entryway with my hands still resting on the lock, my pulse racing so hard I could feel it in my throat. The house was quiet again, but not the fragile quiet of earlier days. This silence had weight. It had strength. It felt like the silence after a storm, not peaceful yet, but powerful in a way that stirred something inside me. I walked to the living room, sat on the sofa, and tried to slow my breathing. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from adrenaline. Confronting Daniel, with her standing behind him, had taken more out of me than I realized. But it had also proven something important. I wasn't weak, I wasn't breaking, and I wasn't alone anymore. With Mr. Peterson handling the legal mess, not with Emma supporting me, not with strangers like Rachel quietly recognizing Daniel's lies. After a few minutes of grounding breaths, I stood up and began pacing. Sitting still made me feel trapped, and trapped was a feeling I refused to accept anymore. My steps led me to the bedroom where Daniel's dresser still held his things, shirts, folded neatly, cologne he hadn't bothered to take, a watch he rarely wore. Seeing them filled me with a strange mixture of sadness and disgust. These were the remnants of a man who had already moved on. He didn't belong here anymore. Neither did his things. Without overthinking it, I opened a large storage bin from the closet and began filling it, shirt after shirt, belt after belt, sock after sock. Every folded piece of fabric felt like a piece of the past being removed, a piece of weight being lifted. I didn't cry, didn't pause, didn't let my mind wander into nostalgia. I had done enough of that. This was purification. This was reclaiming space. When the bin was full, I sealed the lid and dragged it out to the garage. I didn't know yet if I'd mail it to him, leave it at his mother's house, or dump it on his office doorstep. But I knew I didn't want it inside my home another minute. As I dusted my hands off, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a number I didn't recognize. "Hello?" I said cautiously. A clipped, professional voice responded, "This is Mark Jennings from Peckman and Associates. I represent your husband in the divorce proceedings." My entire body tensed. "Yes. I'm calling to discuss settlement terms and to request your availability for a meeting." I swallowed. "You can speak with my attorney." There was a pause. We reached out to Mr. Peterson, but he hasn't responded yet. I assumed it would be easier to resolve matters directly. "No," I said firmly. "It wouldn't." Another pause. The lawyer's tone shifted slightly, becoming thinly polite. "Mrs. Richardson? Rector?" I corrected sharply. "Apologies. Mrs. Richter, my client would like to avoid unnecessary conflict." "So would I said. "That's why we have lawyers." His professionalism cracked for a moment. "It would be in your best interest to negotiate." It was subtle, but the implication was a threat. I felt anger rise. "Mr. Jennings, I didn't ask for this divorce. I didn't plan it for a year. I didn't consult lawyers behind anyone's back. I didn't hide a new relationship. So please don't lecture me about avoiding conflict." If your client wants an amicable settlement, he should have thought about that before blindsiding me. Silence again. Then we'll wait for Mr. Peterson's response. He hung up. I stared at the phone for a long moment, then let out a long breath. Every interaction, every confrontation, every piece of this process confirmed one thing Daniel expected me: to crumble. He expected me to surrender. He expected me to choose peace over dignity. But I was choosing dignity now, and he didn't know what to do with that. I walked into the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water, my hand steady for the first time all morning. Just as I lifted it, there was another knock at the door. My heart lurched, but when I checked the peephole, a wave of relief washed over me. It was Eleanor, my neighbor. Her kind eyes and warm smile were a balm to my frayed nerves. I opened the door, and she stepped inside holding a container of soup. "You look like you need this," she said gently. I let out a tired laugh. "How did you guess?" "Woman just know," she replied, squeezing my arm. We sat at the dining table, and I told her everything: Daniel's visit, the lawyer's call, seeing the other woman in broad daylight on my doorstep. Eleanor listened quietly, occasionally shaking her head or muttering disapproval under her breath. "He brought her here?" she asked, stunned. "Yes." "That man has lost his mind," she said, "and she's worse for agreeing. I don't understand how someone can be that bold," I said. Eleanor sighed. "People who know they've done wrong often behave boldly. It's a shield. If they pretend everything is normal, they don't have to face their guilt." I stared down at my hands. "He said I'm making things difficult." She scoffed. "Of course he thinks that. Difficult is what men call women who stop tolerating nonsense." Her words hit me with unexpected comfort. We talked for nearly an hour before she left, leaving me with soup and something much more important: clarity. After she left, I sat in the living room and replayed the last 2 days in my mind. Every confrontation, every insult, every revelation. And the more I thought about it, the clearer the pattern became. Daniel wasn't angry because I was fighting back. He was angry because he never expected me to. He wanted control. He wanted the house. He wanted a guilt-free exit. He wanted to walk into a new life with his new woman, clean and untarnished. But life doesn't work that way. As I stared at the soft glow of the lamp beside me, a new thought took shape in my mind, sharp, bright, undeniable. I wasn't just going to survive this. I was going to win. And the first step toward winning was telling the truth. I reached for my notebook again, not to cry, not to question myself, but to plan. That evening, as the sun slipped behind the skyline and the last thin strands of light faded from the living room, I found myself sitting with my notebook open again. Not because I wanted to reflect, but because I needed to prepare. Daniel wasn't just trying to divorce me. He was trying to dismantle my entire life with as little resistance as possible. He thought I would fold. He thought guilt would silence me. He thought my fear would guide me. He still didn't understand that the woman who built this marriage was not the same woman standing on the ruins of it now. I flipped to a new page and began writing bullet points. Facts, not emotions. 20 years of marriage, support through 6 job transitions, full household management, majority of childcare for Emma, financial contributions. He minimized his emotional withdrawal, his affair, his premeditated divorce planning, his attempt to intimidate me, his attempt to bring his girlfriend into my home. Seeing it written out made it real. Written out made it real, made it sharper, made it something I could use instead of something that could crush me. Halfway through writing, my phone buzzed again. Another message from Daniel's number, short, cold, strategic. Daniel, my lawyer, needs paperwork from you. Stop ignoring me. I typed a response, deleted it. Typed another, deleted that too. Every version was either too angry or too emotional, and neither of those were the woman I wanted to be anymore. So I put my phone down and let silence be my answer. Around 9 p.m., just when I thought the day was finally settling into quiet, my doorbell rang again. My chest tightened instantly. For a moment, I feared Daniel had come back the way abusers storm back when they feel their control slipping. But when I checked the peephole, I saw someone I didn't expect. Rachel, the woman from the grocery store, the one who worked with Daniel. She stood on my porch holding a plastic bag, shifting nervously. I opened the door, surprised. "I'm sorry to drop by unannounced," she said quickly. "But I thought about our conversation today, and I felt awful leaving you the way I did." I blinked. "You didn't do anything wrong." "I know," she said softly, "but I also know something I think you should hear." And I didn't want to text it. My eyebrows rose. "Come in." She stepped inside, glancing around as if expecting Daniel to appear. I led her to the living room, and we sat across from each other. There was a tension in the air, something unsaid, something heavy. "What is it?" I asked. She swallowed hard. "I didn't want to cause you more pain, but after I left earlier, one of my coworkers overheard me mention your name, and she told me something important." My stomach clenched. "What?" Rachel looked almost afraid. "Daniel didn't just meet that woman recently. They've been seeing each other for about 8 months. I inhaled sharply, but it didn't surprise me. Not really. The pieces had already been lining up in my mind. Rachel continued, "But that's not all." She reached into the bag she brought and handed me a small folder. "This is from HR at the company. She asked me to pass it to you." Quietly, my pulse picked up. "What is it?" "It's proof," she said. "Messages, emails, timeline logs, everything showing when they started." My hands shook as I opened the folder. Inside were printed screenshots, time-stamped emails between Daniel and the woman, flirty messages disguised as work conversations, scheduled after-hours meetings that were clearly dates, some dated back almost 9 months. My eyes stung, but I blinked away the tears. They weren't the weak kind. They were the kind that came from recognition, confirmation, truth. Rachel squeezed my hand gently. "I know it's painful, but I thought you needed to know. Daniel is telling people at work that the marriage failed because you were distant. He's saying you pushed him away." A sharp, bitter laugh escaped my lips. "Of course he is. He's trying to make himself look like the victim," Rachel said. "But we know better." I nodded slowly. "Thank you for bringing this to me. It means more than you know." She hesitated. "There's one more thing." I braced myself. "Go on." "Daniel told people that you depend on him financially," she said. "He said you'd have nothing without him. That's why he thought you'd sign the settlement quickly." That last part hit me harder than everything else, not because it was true, but because it showed what he really believed about me. He didn't think I was weak. He thought I was nothing. When Rachel left, I placed the folder on the table and sat for a long time, staring at it, not crying, not angry, just thinking. He wanted the house. He wanted the assets. He wanted the story told in his favor. He wanted his new relationship to look clean. He wanted to walk away the hero. But now I had proof. At nearly midnight, I called Mr. Peterson. He answered groggily, but when he heard the words, evidence of the affair, he woke up instantly. Claire, he said, this changes everything. I explained Rachel's visit, the folder, the emails, the HR involvement. He took notes rapidly. This proves intent, he said, premeditation, misconduct, dishonesty, and it demolishes his narrative. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. So what now? Now, he said, we use this and we prepare for battle. After the call, I curled up in bed, the weight of the folder beside me like a guardian. For the first time since Daniel handed me those papers, I felt not just strong, not just angry, not just free. I felt ready to fight, ready to stand up, ready to reclaim the years I had lost. As I drifted into sleep, one final thought whispered through my mind, soft but fierce, he may have started this war, but I will end it. I woke the next morning with a feeling I hadn't felt in a long time, clarity. It wasn't peace, not yet. And it wasn't happiness, but it was a strange, sharp awareness, like stepping outside after a storm and realizing the sky is finally visible again. The ache was still there, yes, but behind it was something stronger, something steadier. Determination. I got out of bed, washed my face, and caught my reflection in the mirror. My eyes looked tired, but there was a spark in them that hadn't been there in years. A spark that said, I'm done being afraid. In the kitchen, as I brewed coffee, my eyes drifted to the folder Rachel had delivered last night. It sat on the table like a silent witness, filled with the truth Daniel had tried so hard to hide. Emails, messages, times, dates. Proof that while I was planning surprises for anniversaries, he was planning an exit strategy. Proof that while I was patching the holes in our marriage, he was digging tunnels out of it. Proof that while I fought to keep us together, he fought to leave. I took a deep breath and sat down, flipping through the pages again, not because I wanted to torture myself, but because I needed every detail burned into my mind. If there was one thing I knew about Daniel, it was that he always made himself the victim in every story. But not this time. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Unknown. Is this Claire? Unknown. This is Jenna. I'm sorry if this is strange, but I need to tell you something important. I frowned. I didn't recognize the name. Before I could reply, another message came. Jenna, I work at Daniel's office. I've been wanting to reach out, but I was scared. Can we talk? My heart hammered. Another coworker? Another piece of the puzzle? I typed back me yes. What is it? The typing bubble appeared immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again, like she was nervous about what she was about to say. Jenna, I don't know how to tell you this, but please know I'm not doing this to hurt you. I'm doing it because you deserve to know the truth. I swallowed hard. May tell me. A few seconds passed before her next message came. Jenna, Daniel didn't just cheat with one woman. He's been involved with at least 2 others over the last year. I stared at the screen as the words sank in. It felt like something heavy slammed into my chest, but strangely, it didn't feel like heartbreak. It felt like confirmation. A pattern, a truth, a man who wasn't confused, just selfish. Another message, Jenna, I know because one of them is my friend. She ended it months ago when she realized he was married. She said he told her you were emotionally unstable and controlling. Jenna, he lied to everyone. He made you look like the problem. I sat back slowly, a cold realization spreading through me. So that's how he justified everything. That's how he built his new life. He painted me as the villain so he could play the hero. I typed me. Thank you for telling me. Jenna, I'm really sorry. I would never have messaged you if I didn't think you needed to know. He's not who he pretends to be. After thanking her again, I set the phone down and let out a long, shaking breath. He wasn't just ending the marriage. He was rewriting history to make himself look innocent. That hurt more than anything else. I opened my notebook again and wrote a new line. He didn't break my heart. He broke my trust. As I wrote it, a knock sounded at the door. For a split second, panic flared. Was it Daniel again? His lawyer? The girlfriend? I checked the peephole. It was Emma. Relief washed through me as I opened the door. She stepped inside, shoulders slumped, a worried look in her eyes. Mom, she said softly. Dade's furious. I let out a breath. About what? He said your lawyer is being aggressive and that you're trying to ruin him. She rolled her eyes. He's acting like he's the victim. Of course he was. What did you say to him? I asked carefully. She shrugged, crossing her arms. I told him he brought this on himself. He got mad and said, I'm choosing sides. What did you say? I said I wasn't choosing sides. I was choosing truth. My chest tightened with emotion. Emma, I'm not stupid, Mom, she said, her voice shaking. I've seen how he treats you. I've seen how he gets when you confront him. And I've seen how he acts around that woman. Her eyes filled with tears. I'm angry too, she whispered. I held her tightly, and for a long moment, we just stood there, mother and daughter, clinging to each other in the middle of a fractured family. After she calmed down, she sat on the sofa while I made lunch. When I brought plates to the table, she looked at the folder from Rachel. What's that? She asked. I hesitated. Proof? Proof of what? She asked cautiously. I sighed. That your father's been cheating for a long time with more than one woman. Her face went pale. Multiple? I nodded. She covered her face with her hands. How could he? That was a question I no longer cared to answer. After lunch, Emma left to meet a friend, promising to come back that evening. When she was gone, I called Mr. Peterson immediately. He picked up on the first ring. Claire, everything all right? Yes, I said. And no, we need to talk. I have more information. I told him about Jenna, about the multiple affairs, about how Daniel painted me as unstable and controlling. Mr. Peterson sighed heavily. This strengthens our case even more. The more deceit he committed, the weaker his position becomes. What do we do now? I asked. We strike first, he said. I'm filing a counter petition. He won't see it coming. As I hung up, I felt something shift inside me, something fierce and unbreakable. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It wasn't about punishing him. It was about reclaiming myself, my dignity, my story. I went upstairs, opened the windows, and let fresh air sweep through the room. The sunlight warmed my face, and for the first time in weeks, I felt something almost like hope. Not for the marriage, not for him, but for me. That afternoon, the house felt strangely still, like the air itself was waiting for the next hit, the next revelation, the next move in a battle I never asked to fight. But instead of feeling fear or dread, I felt a growing sense of readiness. Daniel thought he could control the narrative. He thought he could walk away clean. He thought I would crumble. But every new truth only made me stronger. I went into the living room, sat down with a cup of tea, and pulled my notebook into my lap again. The pages were filling up, lists, notes, reflections, timelines. Yet the more I wrote, the more I realized these pages weren't just evidence or reminders. They were reclaiming. rediscovery, a rebuilding of myself from the inside out. Halfway through writing, I heard my phone buzz once and then stop, then buzz again, then again. I turned it over reluctantly. 5 missed calls, all from a number I recognized. Daniel's mother. My stomach tightened. She had always been polite, distant, someone who hovered at the edges of our marriage, but never stepped into the center of it. She preferred neutrality. She preferred quiet. She preferred not to get involved. But now she was calling me 5 times in a row. Before I could talk myself out of it, I answered, "Claire." Her voice came through, sharp and breathless. "Yes," I said cautiously. "Oh, thank God you picked up," she exhaled. "I've been trying to reach you all morning. Daniel told me." I cut her off gently. "If you're calling to defend him?" "No," she said quickly, surprising me. "No, Claire, I'm not." I froze. "I just spoke to him," she continued, her tone trembling, "and he told me you were being difficult and dramatic. He said you were refusing to cooperate, but then I talked to Emma, and she told me everything." A lump formed in my throat. "Everything." "She told me he blindsided you. On your anniversary." Her voice cracked. "I didn't raise him to be this kind of man." Something inside me softened, not toward Daniel, but toward this woman who sounded heartbroken by her son's actions. "I'm so sorry, Claire," she whispered. "I am so sorry." Tears blurred my vision. "It's not your fault. He's ashamed," she said. "That's why he's acting this way. But shame doesn't excuse cruelty." "No," I agreed quietly. "It doesn't." There was a long pause. Then she said something I didn't expect. "If you need support in court, I will testify for you." I nearly dropped the phone. "What?" "He told me lies about you," she said, voice tightening. "Said you were controlling, that you kept him trapped, that you were unstable. But I've known you for 20 years. I've never seen anything but kindness from you." My breath hitched. "I know about the other woman," she added softly. "I've known for months. I begged him to tell you. He refused." A bitter, quiet anger rose inside me, not at her, but at Daniel. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I thought it wasn't my place," she admitted, her voice small. "But now, seeing what he's doing, I can't stay silent anymore." I pressed a hand in my mouth, overwhelmed. "Whatever you need," she said firmly. "A statement, a testimony, anything." "Thank you," I whispered. "Truly." When we hung up, I sat there for a long time in stunned silence. Daniel wasn't losing control of his narrative. He had already lost it. His own mother had turned against his lies. I wiped my eyes and stood up. My hands were steady again, more steady than they had been in days. I grabbed the folder from Rachel, the notes from my notebook, and began organizing everything into a binder. A simple action, but symbolic. I wasn't a broken wife anymore. I was a woman preparing for battle. A knock at the door snapped me back to reality. Not again. Not him. Not today. I checked the peephole, and to my surprise, it wasn't Daniel. It was Eleanor, my neighbor, my unexpected anchor. She held a stack of mail and a bag of freshly baked muffins. I opened the door gratefully. "You didn't have to." "I know," she said, pushing inside gently. "But I wanted to." She looked around the living room, then at me, her eyes soft but sharp. "Rough day." I let out a tired laugh. That obvious. She set the muffins down and sat on the sofa, patting the space beside her. "Come sit. Tell me everything." So I did. I told her about the emails, the calls, the office women, Daniel's mother. I told her about the lies he spread, the stories he twisted, the pressure he tried to put on me. I told her about the binder, the lawyer, the counter petition. Eleanor listened with the patience of someone who had lived through her own storms. When I finished, she leaned back and let out a whistle. "You're in deeper than I thought," she said. "But Claire, look at you." "What?" "You're fighting," she said. "You're standing up. Yesterday, you couldn't breathe. Today, you're gathering evidence and preparing legal counterattacks. That's strength." I swallowed hard. "Some moments I still feel like falling apart." "That's human," she said. "But you're not staying down. That's what matters." I nodded slowly. Then she added something that struck me to my core. "You're finally seeing your worth." My chest tightened with emotion. For years, I had been the one giving, sacrificing, bending myself to fit the shape of a marriage Daniel had already outgrown. I had been fighting for something he abandoned long before I realized it. But now I wasn't fighting to save marriage. I was fighting to save me. As evening fell, Eleanor left with a warm hug and a promise. "Call me if he tries anything again." After she left, I sat alone in the quiet again. But this time, the quiet didn't scare me. It held space for something new, something forming, something powerful. For the first time in 20 years, I realized I wasn't afraid of a future without Daniel. I was afraid of a future where I stayed with him. The truth hit me like a revelation. Losing him wasn't the tragedy. Keeping him had been. And now that I was free, I wasn't going back. The next morning felt different. Not lighter, not exactly easier, but steadier, like the ground beneath me had finally solidified after weeks of shaking. I got dressed with purpose, choosing clothes that made me feel grounded. Dark jeans, a soft sweater, comfortable shoes. Then I tied my hair back, looked in the mirror, and saw something surprising. I saw myself. Not Daniel's wife, not someone's partner, not someone bending or shrinking, just me. I made coffee, glanced at the binder I had assembled, and felt a quiet satisfaction settle in my chest. This wasn't simply a binder of evidence. It was a binder of truth, a binder of proof that I had been living through deception and that I was finally stepping out of it. Before I could even take my first sip, my phone buzzed. I braced myself, expecting Daniel again. But it wasn't him. It was Emma. "Emma, Dad wants to talk to you today." "Are you okay with that?" I sighed and typed me, "No, I'm not meeting him." "Emma, he's saying things like, 'Your mom is ruining everything.' Me, he ruined things himself." "Emma, I know, but he's getting angry." "Me, let him." "Emma, Mom, I'm proud of you." I put the phone down, heart swelling for my daughter. She was caught between two worlds, two truths, two parents, but she was choosing honesty, not comfort. The house was still quiet when another message came in, this time from Mr. Peterson. "Mr. Peterson, good morning. I filed the counter petition. Expect backlash from his attorney. Mr. Peterson, stay calm today. Let them make the first mistake. Me, thank you. Truly. Mr. Peterson, Claire, you're doing remarkably well. Don't let him intimidate you." I breathed out slowly. Mr. Peterson had no idea how much those words meant. I wasn't remarkable. I was just finally protecting myself. After breakfast, I decided to clean the last space I hadn't touched yet, the office, our shared workspace, a room I had avoided because it held the heaviest ghosts. Dana used to sit there late into the night, pretending to work, glued to his phone, smiling at messages he never showed me. I opened the door slowly. The room smelled faintly of his cologne, something that once comforted me, but now made my stomach twist. The desk was cluttered with old bills, notebooks, scribbled drafts of who knows what. His coffee mugs were still lined up, half-dried stains at the bottom. I pulled out a trash bag. One by one, I threw things away. Old receipts, unread mail, junk paperwork, dried up pens, crumbled sticky notes, his empty USB drive, business cards of coworkers, names I recognized from the affair emails. My hands paused at one drawer, the bottom drawer, the one Daniel always told me not to open because it was private. My heart thudded as I grasped the handle. Slowly, I slid it open. Inside was a stack of printed photographs. At first, they looked innocuous, work events, parties, casual dinners. But as I sifted through them, a chill spread through my body. There she was, the woman I'd seen at my doorstep, standing beside Daniel, smiling up at him. Her hand on his arm in ways that were far from professional. His face turned toward her with an ease, a softness I hadn't seen in years. And worse, pictures from months ago, months before I even suspected anything. I sat heavily on the edge of the desk chair, photographs trembling in my fingers. They weren't explicit. They weren't kissing. But they didn't have to. Anyone could see it. Anyone could read the body language. They didn't look like coworkers. They didn't look like friends. They looked like a couple, a real couple, a couple living a secret life while I lived in the dark. My eyes stung, but again, they weren't tears of heartbreak. They were tears of clarity, tears of closure, tears of, I will never go back to a life with this man. I placed the photos in the evidence binder. Every fragment of truth mattered now. Just as I finished, my phone rang. Daniel, of course. I let it ring. It rang again and again. Finally, I answered, not for him, but for me. Claire, he snapped the second the line connected. Why are you ignoring me? You're making everything harder? I'm not ignoring you, I said calmly. I'm choosing not to engage. He scoffed. Same thing. No, I replied, voice steady. They're very different. He growled in frustration. My lawyer told me you filed something. What the hell is wrong with you? So many things to choose from. I said dryly, this isn't a game, he hissed. And yet you treated our marriage like one? I said, you made the first move, Daniel. I'm just responding. You don't know what you're doing? He snapped. You're making this uglier than it needs to be. How convenient. I replied that you only want things peaceful when you're the one who benefits. He was silent. You blindsided me, I said. You cheated on me. You planned a divorce behind my back for a year. You told our daughter before telling your own wife. You made yourself the victim at work to justify your actions. And now you want me to sign papers quietly so you can skip into your new life without consequences. That's not fair, he muttered. What's not fair? I said, voice tightening, is that you expected me to stay small while you walked away big. He let out a frustrated breath. I don't want a war. You started one, I said. All I'm doing is defending myself. Another long silence stretched between us. Then his voice shifted lower, darker. If you keep this up, he said slowly, you're going to regret it. My heart didn't even skip. Not nearly as much as you will, I replied. And then I ended the call, just like that. No crying, no begging, no breaking. I stood in the middle of the office and felt power move through me like a pulse, a strength I had never felt before. The old Claire, the one who bent, who accommodated, who forgave before being asked, was gone. This version of me, this woman, she was done being afraid. She was done being used. She was done being rewritten. Now, I was writing my own story, and Daniel was no longer the author. The night after Daniel threatened me, I barely slept, but not because of fear. My mind wasn't racing with panic. It was racing with clarity, the kind that only arrives when someone finally shows you exactly who they are and you finally believe them. I got up before sunrise, brewed a cup of strong coffee, and sat at the kitchen table, watching the sky turn from a deep gray to pale pink. For 20 years, mornings like this were spent waiting for Daniel to wake up, waiting for his mood to reveal itself, waiting to see if that day would be peaceful or tense. Now, the silence felt different. Not empty, not lonely, just mine. By 8, I was dressed, binder in hand, and ready for the meeting Mr. Peterson arranged. I arrived at his office early, the receptionist greeting me with a sympathetic smile. She'd seen dozens of women like me, broken, betrayed, clawing their way back to themselves. But today, I wasn't one of them. When Mr. Peterson walked in, he looked energized, almost excited. "Claire, you won't believe what happened." I raised an eyebrow. "What?" He handed me a document. Daniel's attorney emailed me at 6 this morning. They want to renegotiate. My breath caught. Already? Why? Your counter petition hit them harder than they expected, he said, leaning back in his chair. The evidence you provided, the emails, the timeline, the HR confirmations, it leaves them no clean exit. And now, he smiled. Daniel is scared. A calm satisfaction washed through me. Good. We'll handle everything. Mr. Peterson continued. But I want to prepare you. When a man like Daniel starts losing control, he usually does something impulsive. I nodded. I'm ready? Are you? He asked gently, because once we move forward, there's no going back. I looked him straight in the eyes. I don't want to go back. He smiled. Then let's win this. When I got home that afternoon, Emma was waiting on the front steps. The moment she saw me, she stood up quickly. How did it go? She asked. Better than I expected. She let out a breath she'd been holding. Dad is losing it. I blinked. What do you mean? Has been calling everyone, his friends, relatives, coworkers, trying to get someone on his side. She folded her arms. But no one is buying it anymore, especially after the truth came out. I hesitated. The truth, Emma nodded. The photos, the emails. Grandma told people. She gave a small, almost sad smile. As embarrassed. I didn't take pleasure in his humiliation. Not really. I didn't need revenge, looking victories. I just needed the truth to be louder than his lies. Mom. Emma said softly, touching my arm. I know it hurts, but I'm proud of you. You're so much stronger than I realized. Her words hit deeper than anything else these past weeks. Thank you, I whispered. She hugged me tightly before heading to a friend's house, and I stayed on the porch for a moment, absorbing her warmth even after she was gone. Inside, the house felt different again, as if each passing day stripped away more of Daniel's shadow and replaced it with something gentler, something safer, something that felt like me. I put the binder back on the table and walked upstairs. I opened the closet and pulled out the last box of Daniel's things. A small box filled with old memories, movie tickets from our early dates, birthday cards, anniversary letters written in handwriting I didn't recognize anymore. My fingers hovered over them. Once, those memories were sacred. Now, they felt like artifacts from a life that belonged to someone else. I closed the lid. Then I carried the box to the curb and set it beside the trash bin. It felt like exhaling a breath I'd been holding for 20 years. Just as I stepped back inside, my phone rang. Daniel? My stomach tightened. But I answered anyway, this time from strength, not vulnerability. What do you want, Daniel? His voice trembled with anger. You blindsided me. I almost laughed. Funny choice of words. Why are you doing this? He demanded. Why can't you just sign the papers and move on? Because I'm not the one who lied, I said calmly. Not the one who cheated. Not the one who planned an exit behind someone's back. That's not fair. Stop saying that. I snapped. Stop using words like fair and reasonable to excuse what you did. He fell silent. Then, like a cornered animal, he lashed out. You're going to regret dragging this out. You're going to end up alone, Claire. Alone and pathetic. For a moment, the old fear sparked, then died completely. Daniel, I said quietly, I've been alone for a long time. I was alone while you worked late, while you texted other women, while you planned a life without me. The only difference now is that I'm alone by choice, not by your neglect. He didn't speak. And I knew I had finally said the one truth he couldn't twist. I continued, you didn't break me. You freed me. He inhaled sharply. Don't say that. Why not? I said softly. It's the truth. A long silence stretched between us, thick with all the years of pretense he built and all the truths he tried to bury. Finally, he spoke. Do you hate me? I closed my eyes. No, I don't hate you. But I don't love you either. Not anymore. He didn't respond. The line went quiet, and for the first time since he handed me those divorce papers, I realized something. He wasn't the powerful one anymore. He wasn't the one in control. He was the one afraid. I hope you find whatever you were looking for, I said quietly, but I won't be part of it. And then, for the last time, I hung up, not with anger, not with pain, but with peace. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I sat on the balcony with a cup of tea. The world looked warm again, soft again, possible again. I wasn't devastated. I wasn't broken. I wasn't abandoned. I was free. Free to build a life that wasn't measured by someone else's loyalty or lack of it. Free to breathe without waiting for someone's mood to decide my day. Free to love myself in ways I hadn't allowed in years. I watched the streetlights flicker on one by one and whispered to myself, this is the beginning, not of the end of a marriage, but of the start of a woman rediscovering her worth. And for the first time in decades, that woman was me.